The old cargo ship drifted through space like a scarred metal whale. Its name, Soul's Pride, was painted in faded letters on the side. The ship looked tired and beaten. Rust marks covered the hull. Patches of newer metal showed where repairs had been made over the years. To anyone watching, it seemed like just another human merchant vessel trying to make a living in the dangerous outer regions of the galaxy. But something was different about this ship. Something that made other vessels keep their distance. Warning signs covered every surface of the hull. Bright red and yellow symbols flashed in patterns that hurt the eyes. Text in 17 different alien languages warned anyone who could read. Them. Danger, do not board, authorized personnel only. Extreme hazard. The messages repeated in Vexry script, Trilaxian runes, and dozens of other alien writing systems. Captain Kyung-ho stood on the bridge, watching the space around his ship. He was a tall man in his 40s with graying hair and tired eyes. His uniform was simple and clean, but there were no fancy decorations or medals visible. He looked like any other cargo ship captain, except for the way he carried himself. There was something military in the way he stood, the way he watched everything around him. "Captain," said Sora from her station near the navigation controls. She was younger than Kyung-ho, maybe 30, with short black hair and quick, intelligent eyes. "We're coming up on Nexus Point Trading Station. Should I request docking permission?" Kyung-ho nodded slowly. "Yes, but use the standard merchant codes. Nothing special." Sora's fingers moved over her control panel. She spoke into her headset in the calm, professional voice of a cargo ship officer. "Nexus Point Control, this is Merchant Vessel Souls Pride requesting docking clearance. We have rare earth minerals from the Kepler colonies for trade." The reply came back in the clicking, translated voice of a Trilaxian controller. "Soul's Pride, you are cleared for docking bay 7. Follow standard quarantine procedures. Welcome to Nexus Point." "Acknowledged, Control," Sora replied. She turned to Kyung-ho. "We're cleared for bay 7, Captain." At the engineering station, Dong-Su looked up from his screens. He was a stocky man with strong hands stained from years of working with machinery. His face showed the concentration of someone who understood complex systems. "Captain, all systems are running normal. The cargo bay environmental controls are stable." "Good," Kyung-ho said. "Keep monitoring them. We can't afford any problems." Near the back of the bridge, Hai-Jin worked at the navigation and communications station. She was quiet and careful, the kind of person who noticed small details others missed. Her screen showed star charts and shipping routes, but also other information, security reports, alien fleet movements, and threat assessments. "Captain," Hai-Jin said softly, "I'm picking up some unusual traffic around the station. Several ships that don't match normal trading patterns." Kyung-ho moved to look over her shoulder at the displays. "Pirates? Possibly. The signatures match. Vexry Raider vessels. They're trying to look like regular merchants, but their engine signatures are wrong." Sora frowned. "Should we find another station? We could go to Port Darwin instead." "No," Kyung-ho said after thinking for a moment. "We have a schedule to keep, but everyone stay alert. Make sure all safety systems are ready." The Soul's Pride moved slowly toward the massive trading station. Nexus Point was a huge metal city floating in space, with docking bays, markets, and living areas for thousands of beings from dozens of different species. Ships of all sizes moved around it like insects around a bright light. As they got closer, other ships moved away from them. Not obviously, but Kyung-ho noticed it. A Centauri trader changed course to avoid passing too close. A group of mining ships gave them extra room when they should have been competing for the same docking approach. Even the space traffic controllers seemed to guide other vessels away from their path. "They're afraid of us," Dong-Su said quietly, noticing the same thing. "Good," Kyung-ho replied. "Fear keeps people alive." The docking procedure went smoothly. The Soul's Pride settled into Bay 7 with a soft thump as the station's magnetic clamps locked onto their hull. Through the bridge windows, they could see the busy activity of the trading station, aliens of all kinds moving cargo, making deals, and living their lives. "Shore leave?" So Ra asked. Kyung-ho considered this. His crew had been in space for 3 months. They needed rest and supplies. But he also knew the dangers of leaving their ship unguarded in a place like this. 4 hours, he decided. 2 crew members stay with the ship at all times, standard security protocols. As the crew prepared to leave, Kyung-ho walked through the corridors of his ship. The walls were lined with the same warning signs that covered the outside. Emergency lights blinked at regular intervals. The air recycling system hummed with a sound that suggested it was working harder than normal. Everything looked normal for a cargo ship, but there were small details that didn't quite fit. The corridors were wider than they needed to be. The lighting was brighter than most cargo ships used. Some of the wall panels had extra thickness, as if they were hiding something behind them, and there were cameras. Lots of cameras, more than any normal merchant vessel would need. In the cargo bay, Kyung-ho stopped to check on their cargo. The containers were large, rectangular boxes made of some kind of special metal that didn't reflect light normally. Each one had its own environmental control system, its own power supply, and its own set of warning labels. The labels were even more severe than the ones on the outside of the ship. Biological hazard, extreme danger, authorized personnel only, lethal if opened. Dong-soo joined him in the cargo bay. All containers show green status, Captain. Temperature, pressure, and containment all within safe limits. Good, keep it that way. Kyung-ho looked at the containers with the expression of a man who knew exactly what was inside them and wished he didn't. How long until we reach the facility? If we maintain our current schedule, 18 days? 18 days, Kyung-ho repeated. 18 more days of carrying this cargo through hostile space, past pirates and raiders and anyone else who might think we're an easy target. The warnings should keep most people away, Dong-soo said. Should, Kyung-ho agreed. But there's always someone who thinks the warnings don't apply to them. Outside their ship, in the busy corridors of Nexus Point, aliens from across the galaxy went about their business. Most of them noticed the human ship with its warning signs and decided to keep their distance. The messages were clear enough, and humans had a reputation for being dangerously paranoid about safety, but not everyone was scared off by warning signs. In a dark bar 3 levels down from the docking bays, a group of Vexery pirates sat around a table, drinking and planning their next job. Their leader, Dexkar, was a large, scarred creature with 4 arms and teeth like broken glass. He looked at a datapad showing information about the ships currently docked at the station. "Look at this," he said to his crew, pointing at an image of the Soul's Pride, human cargo ship, old, lightly armed, small crew. Says here they're carrying rare earth minerals from the colonies. One of his lieutenants, Glaxmore, looked at the image and frowned. "What about all those warning signs?" Vexkar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Humans put warning signs on everything. They're afraid of their own shadows. Probably worried about space dust or something equally harmless." But Captain," another pirate said, 17 different languages. "That's a lot of effort for a simple cargo ship. It's psychology," Vexkar explained. "They want to look dangerous, so real pirates will leave them alone. But we're not scared of human tricks. When they leave the station, we'll be waiting for them." Back on the Soul's Pride, Kyung-ho stood in his quarters, looking out the small window at the activity of the trading station. He had changed from his simple captain's uniform into civilian clothes, but he still carried himself like a military officer. On his desk, a secure communication device blinked with an incoming message. He activated the device, and a holographic image appeared. It was a woman in a military uniform with colonel's insignia. "Status report, Kyung-ho. On schedule, Colonel Park. No incidents so far. The cargo is secure and stable." "Good. Intelligence reports increased pirate activity in your area. Be careful." "We always are. The warnings are posted. The protocols are in place. If anyone is stupid enough to ignore them." Kyung-ho shrugged. "Let's hope no one is that stupid," Colonel Park said. "The consequences would be severe." After the communication ended, Kyung-ho sat in his chair and looked at his hands. They were steady, but he could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. His ship carried something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Something that other species would kill for if they knew what it really was. The warning signs weren't just suggestions. They were the last barrier between the galaxy and something that should never be unleashed. But Kyung-ho knew that there was always someone who thought they were smarter than the warnings. Someone who believed that rules didn't apply to them, and when that happened, the universe had a way of teaching very harsh lessons. The Soul's Pride left Nexus Point 6 hours after docking. Captain Kyung-ho had kept the shore leave short, just long enough for his crew to get supplies and stretch their legs. Now they were back in the darkness of space, heading toward their destination through the asteroid fields of the Outer Rim. "Course laid in, Captain," Haijin reported from her navigation station. "We should clear the asteroid field in 14 hours, then it's open space to the jump point." Kyung-ho nodded, but his eyes were focused on the sensor displays. Something felt wrong. In his years of commanding ships, both military and civilian, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were screaming at him. Sora, run a full sensor sweep. "Look for anything that doesn't belong." Sora's hands moved quickly over her controls. The ship's sensors reached out into the darkness, searching for other vessels, energy signatures, anything unusual. After a few minutes, she frowned at her displays. "I'm getting some strange readings, Captain. There are ships out there, but they're running silent, minimal power signatures, trying to hide." "How many? At least 6, maybe more?" "They're spread out through the asteroid field like they're waiting for something." Dong-Su looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, should I power up the defensive systems?" "Not yet," Kyung-ho said. "We don't want to look like we're expecting trouble." "But have everything ready? And Dong-Su?" "Yes, Captain." "Run a diagnostic on the cargo bay security systems, all of them." Dong-Su's expression became more serious. "All systems, Captain?" "All of them." As Dong-Su began running his diagnostics, Haijin continued monitoring the hidden ships. "They're moving now, Captain. Adjusting their positions to surround us. Classic pirate ambush formation." Kyung-ho activated the ship's communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. "Unknown vessels in the asteroid field. This is Captain Kyung-ho of the merchant vessel Soul's Pride. We are a peaceful trading ship carrying legitimate cargo. We mean no harm to anyone." The response came quickly in the harsh, clicking language of the Vexery, automatically translated by the ship's computer. "Soul's Pride. This is Thexcar of the Vexery Brotherhood. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Comply and no one gets hurt." "Thexcar," Kyung-ho said into his microphone, "I strongly advise you to reconsider your actions. This vessel is clearly marked with warning signs in multiple languages, including Vexery. Please examine these warnings carefully before proceeding." Thexcar's laughter came through the speakers like grinding metal. "Human, your pathetic warnings don't scare us. You're outnumbered 6-1. Surrender now, or we'll take your ship." By force, Kyung-ho looked at his crew. Sora's face was calm but alert. Haijin was calculating something on her navigation computer. Dong-Su had finished his diagnostics and was now entering commands that would prepare systems the pirates couldn't even imagine. "Thexcar," Kyung-ho said, his voice becoming more formal, "this is your final warning. The Soul's Pride is carrying extremely hazardous cargo. For your own safety and the safety of the entire sector, do not attempt to board this vessel. I repeat, do not board." "Enough," Thexcar snarled. "All ships, move in. Disable their engines, but don't destroy the cargo holds. I want to see what's so valuable that they think warning signs will protect it." On the sensor displays, the 6 pirate ships revealed themselves, emerging from behind asteroids like predators stalking prey. They were fast, heavily armed raiders designed for quick strikes against merchant vessels. Each one was larger and more powerful than the Soul's Pride. "Captain," Sora said quietly, "they're launching boarding shuttles." Kyung-ho watched the tactical display as small craft separated from the pirate ships and began moving toward them. He counted 8 shuttles, each carrying at least 10 armed pirates. Against his crew of 4, it should have been hopeless. Should have been. Hyjin, start calculating safe distance parameters, Kyung-ho ordered. Safe distance from what, Captain? From us. Hyjin's eyes widened slightly, but she began working on her calculations. How much distance do we need, Captain? All of it. Every bit of distance we can get. Dong-su finished his preparations and turned to face Kyung-ho. Captain, all security systems are online and ready. Cargo bay environmental controls are stable. Emergency protocols are loaded and standing by. Good. When those shuttles dock, give them exactly 60 seconds to realize their mistake and withdraw. After that ... Understood, Captain. The first boarding shuttle attached itself to the Soul's Pride with a metallic clang that echoed through the hull. More clangs followed as the other shuttles found docking points along the ship's sides. Cutting tools began working on the airlocks, filling the air with the sound of metal being sliced apart. Kyung-ho activated the ship's internal communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor and room of the vessel. Attention boarding. Parties, you are trespassing on a classified research vessel carrying extremely dangerous biological specimens. This is not a standard cargo ship. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The only response was the continued sound of cutting tools and the harsh voices of Vexery pirates calling to each other as they breached the outer airlocks. Captain, Sora said, they're inside the outer hull. First group is moving toward the cargo bay. Of course they are, Kyung-ho said sadly. They always go for the cargo bay first. On the security monitors, they could see the pirates moving through the corridors. They were big, heavily armed Vexery warriors with energy weapons and cutting tools. Their leader, who must be Glaxmore based on the markings on his armor, was pushing his team forward aggressively. The pirates reached the first set of warning signs on the inner walls and stopped to read them. Even with translation software, the warnings were clear and frightening. But after a brief discussion, they continued forward. They're ignoring the signs? Hyjin observed. They always do, Kyung-ho replied. Greed makes people stupid. More pirates entered the ship through different airlocks. Soon there were nearly 40 armed Vexery moving through the Soul's Pride, searching for crew members and valuable cargo. They found neither. The crew had retreated to a secure command bunker deep in the ship's core, protected by thick armor and hidden behind false walls. From there, they could monitor every part of their vessel and control all its systems. Captain, Dong-su said, the pirates have reached the main cargo bay. They're examining the containers. On the security monitors, they watched as Glaxmore and his team stood before the large, sealed containers that held the Soul's Pride's real cargo. The containers were impressive, each one the size of a small building, made of some kind of exotic metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Warning labels covered every surface of the containers. Some were printed in standard Galactic languages, but others were more unusual, symbols and patterns that suggested something beyond normal hazard warnings. There were biohazard symbols, radiation warnings, quarantine notices, and stranger markings that only specialists would recognize. Glaxmore examined the warnings with his team's translation software. Biological hazard, he read aloud. Extreme. Danger. Authorized personnel only. Lethal if opened. He laughed. More human paranoia. They probably have some rare bacteria or something equally harmless. One of his pirates, a younger Vexery named Klexdu, seemed less certain. Lieutenant, maybe we should listen to the warnings. Humans don't usually go to this much trouble unless... Unless what? Glaxmore snapped. Unless they're trying to scare us away from their valuable cargo. These containers are worth a fortune, whatever's inside them. Start cutting them open. In the command bunker, Kyung-ho watched the pirates prepare their cutting tools. Dong-su, how long until they breach the first container? At their current rate, maybe 10 minutes. And how long for a full containment breach? Once they cut through the outer shell, maybe 30 seconds. The inner containment systems won't hold long against their equipment. Kyung-ho nodded grimly. Hyjin, have you finished calculating safe distances? Yes, Captain. But sir, the nearest inhabited system is, I know where it is. Just tell me, can we get far enough away in time? Haijin looked at her calculations again. If we start moving now, and if the pirates don't interfere with our engines, yes, barely. Then start moving, slowly like we're trying to escape. We don't want them to get suspicious. The Soul's Pride began to accelerate away from the asteroid field, but not quickly enough to suggest panic. To the pirates on the raider ships, it looked like a desperate but futile attempt to escape while their boarding parties were still attached. Vexcar's voice came over the communication system. Soul's Pride, stop trying to run. My warriors are already aboard your ship. Surrender, and we might let your crew live. Kyung-ho picked up the microphone one last time. Vexcar, I'm going to give you one final chance. Order your people to withdraw from my ship immediately. What they're about to do will have consequences that reach far beyond this star system. The only consequences will be for you, human. My warriors are about to open your precious cargo containers. Whatever's inside them will make us rich. No, Kyung-ho said quietly. What's inside them will make you dead. He turned to his crew. Final warning protocols are complete. All safety measures have been exhausted. Dong-su, prepare to initiate. Protocol 7. Dong-su's hands moved to a seto. Glaxmore pushed his cutting tool deeper into the container's outer shell. The metal resisted but slowly gave way under the intense heat of the plasma cutter. More vapor escaped from the breach, creating a strange shimmer in the air around the container. Almost through, he called to his team. Get ready to see what the humans were so worried about. Behind him, 30 Vexari pirates spread out through the cargo bay. Weapons ready, expecting anything from precious metals to advanced technology. What they didn't expect was the sudden change in the air around them. The shimmer from the container began to spread, moving in patterns that didn't follow normal air currents. It moved with purpose, reaching toward the nearest pirates like invisible fingers testing the air. When it touched the first Vexari warrior, nothing seemed to happen. The pirate didn't even notice. Contact the ship, Glaxmore ordered one of his communications specialists. Tell Vexcar we're about to open the first container. The communications specialist, a younger Vexari named Raxtel, activated his radio. Captain Vexcar, this is Boarding Team Alpha. We're breaching the first container now. Vexcar's voice crackled back through the radio. Good. What do you see? Just some kind of gas or vapor, Captain. Nothing dangerous so far. In the command bunker, Sora watched the security monitors with growing tension. Captain, the contamination is spreading faster than our models predicted. Kyung-ho studied the displays. The shimmer in the air was now visible throughout the cargo bay, and it was moving toward the corridors where more pirates were stationed. How long before it reaches the other boarding teams? At this rate, maybe 5 minutes, Haijin calculated. And how long before symptoms appear? Dong-su checked his biological monitoring systems. Unknown. This is the first time Subject X-47 has been exposed to Vexari physiology. Could be minutes, could be hours. We can't wait to find out, Kyung-ho decided. Continue moving us away from the asteroid field. Maximum speed that won't damage the boarding shuttles still attached to our hull. Back in the cargo bay, Glaxmore finally cut through the container's outer shell. A section of metal fell away, revealing an inner chamber filled with a strange, glowing liquid. Floating in the liquid were dozens of small, dark objects that looked like seeds or eggs. What are those? Asked Glixlixdu, the younger pirate who had expressed doubts earlier. Glaxmore studied the objects with his scanner. Biological specimens of some kind. Maybe they're valuable for medical research. He reached toward the breach in the container. Help me get a sample. Lieutenant, Klextu said nervously, maybe we should be more careful. All these warnings are just human paranoia, Glaxmore finished. Look around you. Do you see anything dangerous? Any weapons? Any defenses? It's just a cargo ship with some biological samples. But even as he spoke, things were beginning to change. The shimmer in the air had reached several of the pirates, and though they didn't know it yet, Microscopic organisms were already entering their bodies through their breathing apparatus and the small gaps in their armor. Raxtel, the communications specialist, was the first to notice something wrong. "Lieutenant," he said, touching his helmet, "I'm getting some strange readings on my biosensors. Elevated heart rate, unusual brain activity." "Probably just excitement," Glaxmore said dismissively. "We're about to be rich." But Raxtel's readings were getting worse. His heart rate was climbing beyond safe levels, and his brain scans showed patterns that the medical computer couldn't identify. "Lieutenant, I think something's wrong. I feel ... strange." That's when the screaming started. It came from the corridor outside the cargo bay, where another team of pirates had been searching the ship. The sound echoed through the Soul's Pride's halls. Not the scream of someone in pain, but something else, something that sounded like rage and hunger combined. "What was that?" Klextu asked, raising his weapon. Glaxmore activated his radio. "Team Beta, report your status." The response came back as static mixed with more of those strange, inhuman sounds. Through the noise, they could make out words in Vexery, but the voice didn't sound right. It was too deep, too harsh, and it said things that made no sense. Hungry, spreading, growing, need more. "Team Beta, clarify your last transmission," Glaxmore ordered. This time the response was clearer, but much worse. It was definitely the voice of Vexmore, the leader of Team Beta, but he sounded like a different person entirely. "Lieutenant, something's wrong with us. We're changing. The air. It's in the air. We can't stop it." Then the transmission cut to static. In the command bunker, Kyung Ho watched the security monitors with grim fascination. The cameras in quarter section C showed Team Beta, but they weren't behaving like the disciplined pirates who had boarded his ship. They were moving in strange, jerky patterns, like marionettes controlled by an inexperienced puppeteer. "The infection is accelerating," Dongsu reported. "Vexery physiology seems to be more susceptible than we anticipated." "How much more susceptible?" So-Ra asked. "A lot more. Human exposure takes hours for symptoms to appear. With the Vexery, it's happening in minutes." On the security monitors, they could see Vexmore, the leader of Team Beta. His armor was still intact, but his movements were completely wrong. He walked with a strange, predatory grace, and his head turned in ways that suggested his neck bones were no longer limiting his range of motion. Worse, he seemed to be growing. His armor, which had fit perfectly when he boarded the ship, now looked tight. Muscle mass was increasing visibly, and his limbs were becoming longer and more angular. "Subject X-47 is adapting to its new host species," Kyung Ho observed, "and it's doing it fast." Back in the cargo bay, Glaxmore was trying to understand what was happening to his mission. "All teams, report status immediately." The responses he got back were not encouraging. Team Gamma reported strange sensations and difficulty thinking clearly. Team Delta wasn't responding at all, and Team Beta was making sounds that didn't seem to come from Vexery throats. "Lieutenant," Klextu said, backing toward the cargo bay entrance, "we need to leave, now." "We're not leaving without the cargo," Glaxmore insisted. But his voice lacked its earlier confidence. That's when Raxtel collapsed. The communications specialist fell to his knees, clutching his helmet. Through his visor they could see his face, and it was changing. His eyes were becoming larger and darker. His mouth was stretching into something that was no longer quite Vexery. When he spoke, his voice was different. "So hungry," he said, but he wasn't looking at food. He was looking at his fellow pirates. "Raxtel?" Glaxmore approached cautiously. "Are you all right?" Raxtel's head snapped up with inhuman speed. When he looked at Glaxmore, there was intelligence in his eyes, but it wasn't Vexery intelligence. It was something else, something that understood the Vexery language and memories but had very different priorities. Not Raxtel, the thing that had been Raxtel said. Better than Raxtel, stronger, smarter, hungrier. It lunged at the nearest pirate with speed that should have been impossible. Its hands, which had been normal Vexery hands just minutes before, now ended in claws that could tear through armor plating. The attacked pirate screamed and fell. But his scream was cut short when the transformed Raxtel did something to his throat. The cargo bay erupted in chaos. Pirates opened fire with their energy weapons, but the thing that had been Raxtel moved like liquid lightning, dodging shots that should have been impossible to avoid. When it was hit, the energy beams seemed to have less effect than they should. Fall back, Glaxmore shouted. All teams, fall back to the shuttles. But as his team ran for the cargo bay exit, they found their path blocked. The members of Team Beta were standing in the corridor, but they weren't the same Vexery who had entered the ship. They had grown taller and more muscular. Their armor had split in places to accommodate their new size, and their eyes held that same alien intelligence. "Hello, Alpha Team," said the thing that had been Vexmore. "We've been waiting for you." In the command bunker, Kyung-ho turned to his crew. "How many of the boarding parties have been exposed?" "All of them," Haijin reported. "The contamination has spread throughout the ship except for our secure areas." "And how many are showing advanced symptoms?" Dong-Su checked his monitors. 15 confirmed transformations. Maybe 20. The rest are in various stages of infection. Kyung-ho nodded grimly. "And the pirate ships?" So Ra was monitoring communications from the raider fleet. They're getting worried. Captain Nexcar is demanding status reports from his boarding teams. But the responses he's getting don't make sense. What kind of responses? The infected pirates are still using their radios, but they're not reporting back to Nexcar like good soldiers. They're trying to convince the crews of the raider ships to come aboard and join them. Join them? That's what they're saying. Come join us, it's better this way. You'll understand when you're changed. Kyung-ho closed his eyes. This was exactly what the research files had predicted, but seeing it happen was still horrifying. Subject X-47 doesn't just kill its hosts, it improves them from its perspective. Makes them stronger, faster, smarter. But it also makes them loyal to the organism instead of to their original species? So the pirates who were infected are no longer pirates? Kyung-ho finished. They're something else now. The transformed pirates moved through the soul's pride with purpose that chilled Kyung-ho to his core. On the security monitors, he watched as the creatures that had once been Vexery warriors coordinated their actions with perfect efficiency. They no longer fought each other or argued about tactics. They had become a single organism with multiple bodies, all working toward the same goal. "Captain," Sora said, her voice tight with controlled fear, "they're not just heading for the shuttles. They're splitting up. Some are going to the docking bays, but others are moving toward the engine room and the communication array." Kyung-ho studied the tactical display. The infected were showing intelligence that went far beyond what any individual Vexery possessed. They understood that controlling the ship's systems would give them more options than simply escaping in their shuttles. "They're learning," he said grimly. Subject X-47 doesn't just take over the host's body. It integrates their knowledge and memories, then improves on them. Dong-Su looked up from his engineering controls. "Captain, I'm reading unusual activity in Cargo Bay 7. It looks like they're trying to open more containers." "Of course they are," Kyung-ho said. "They want to spread the infection as quickly as possible. More containers mean more organisms, which means faster transformation of any new host they encounter." On the security monitors, they could see the transformed pirates working on the sealed containers with tools and techniques that no ordinary Vexery pirate would know. The organism had somehow given them understanding of advanced containment systems and biological safety protocols. How is that possible? Haijin asked. Those pirates were just soldiers and criminals. They didn't have scientific training. Subject X-47 learns from everything it touches, Kyung-ho explained. Every cell, every piece of genetic information, every neural pathway. It probably absorbed knowledge from the research teams that originally studied it. The thought sent a chill through the command bunker. If the organism could absorb and integrate the knowledge of everyone it infected, then it was becoming more dangerous with each new host dot. Sora was monitoring communications from the pirate fleet. "Captain, Nexcar is getting suspicious." Boarding teams are still responding to his calls, but they're not following his orders anymore. What are they telling him? They're trying to convince him to come aboard. They keep saying things like, "You need to see this, Captain," and "This changes everything." Thexcar is starting to realize something's wrong. On the communication system, they could hear Thexcar's voice growing more angry and confused. "Glaxmore, I order you to report your status immediately. What is your current location, and what have you found in the cargo?" The response came in Glaxmore's voice, but the tone was completely different. It was calm, patient, almost gentle. "Captain, please trust me. Come aboard the human ship. Bring as many crew members as possible. You'll understand everything once you're here." "Glaxmore, you're not making sense. What happened to the rest of your team?" "We're all here, Captain. We're all better now. Stronger, smarter, more unified. The humans weren't trying to hide treasure from us. They were trying to protect us from a gift we weren't ready to receive." Even through the radio, they could hear Thexcar's growl of frustration. "What gift? What are you talking about?" "Evolution, Captain. The next step in our development. Come see for yourself." In the command bunker, Kyung-ho made a decision that went against every instinct he had as a ship captain. "Dong-su, prepare to cut the docking clamps." "Captain?" Dong-su's hands hesitated over his controls. "If we cut the clamps while the shuttles are still attached, the shuttles will be torn away from our hull, I know." Kyung-ho's voice was steady, but his face showed the weight of what he was ordering. "But if those shuttles return to the pirate ships, the infection will spread to 6 more vessels and hundreds more potential hosts." "But Captain," Sora said, "our own people are still aboard those shuttles." "No," Kyung-ho corrected her. "Our people died the moment they were infected. What's left are carriers for Subject X-47, and they're trying to spread the organism to the rest of the galaxy." The security monitors showed the infected pirates had reached the shuttle bays. The creatures that had once been Glaxmore and his team were boarding their shuttle, while others were preparing to activate the docking systems. In minutes, they would be on their way back to the raider ships. "Captain," Hyjin said urgently, "I'm detecting energy buildups in several of the containers they've opened. It looks like they're trying to create some kind of breeding environment." Kyung-ho looked at the biological readings from the cargo bay. The numbers were terrifying. The organisms from the open containers were multiplying at an exponential rate, creating a thick, living soup that pulsed with alien intelligence. "And not just trying to escape," he realized. "They're trying to turn our entire ship into a production facility for Subject X-47. Dong-su was monitoring the engineering systems. "Captain, they've reached the engine room. They're interfacing with our navigation computer." "What are they doing?" "It looks like they're plotting a course." "Oh no. What?" "They're setting course for Nexus Point Trading Station. If they get there with our cargo holds full of active organisms." Kyung-ho didn't need him to finish. Nexus Point had millions of inhabitants from dozens of different species. It would be the perfect breeding ground for Subject X-47 to spread throughout the galaxy. "That's it," Kyung-ho said, reaching for a set of controls he had hoped never to use. "I'm implementing Protocol 7 Alpha." "Captain," Sora said, "Protocol 7 Alpha will ... We'll sterilize our entire ship," Kyung-ho finished. "I know, but it's the only way to contain this outbreak." Protocol 7 Alpha was the final failsafe built into ships that carried biological hazards. It would flood every compartment with a combination of radiation and chemical agents that would destroy all biological material, including the crew. The Soul's Pride would become a lifeless hulk drifting in space, but the infection would die with it. "Wait," Hyjin said suddenly. "Captain, I'm picking up something on the long-range sensors. Another ship is approaching." Kyung-ho looked at the sensor displays. A large vessel was moving toward them at high speed, much larger than the pirate raiders, with energy signatures that suggested military-grade systems. "Can you identify it?" It's a Terran Defense Corps cruiser, the TDC Incheon." Kyung-ho felt a moment of hope, followed immediately by horror. "A Defense Corps ship? They must have been monitoring our mission, but if they get too close to the infection..." The communication system crackled to life with a new voice. Speaking in Korean, Soul's Pride, this is Colonel Park of the TDC Incheon. We received your distress beacon. What is your status? Kyung-ho grabbed the microphone. Colonel Park, this is Colonel Kyung-ho. Do not approach this vessel. We have a containment breach of subject X-47. Repeat, do not approach. Understood. Colonel, we're maintaining safe distance. Can you contain the breach? Kyung-ho looked around the command bunker at his crew. Sora was monitoring the infected pirates as they worked to take control of more ship systems. Dong-su was watching helplessly as the organisms in the cargo bay continued to multiply. Haijin was calculating how long they had before the infection reached critical mass. Negative, Colonel. The organism has adapted to vexury physiology faster than anticipated. We have multiple infected hosts, and they're showing enhanced intelligence and coordination. I'm preparing to initiate final sterilization protocols. Colonel. Park's voice was grim. You know what that means. I know. But if this infection reaches a populated area, we understand. Colonel Kyung-ho, you and your crew have served with honor. We'll make sure the galaxy knows what you sacrificed to protect them. But even as Kyung-ho prepared to activate the sterilization protocol, the situation continued to deteriorate. The infected pirates had gained access to the ship's communication array and were broadcasting to the raider fleet. Captain Nexcar, came Glaxmore's transformed voice. We've secured the human ship. The cargo is more valuable than we imagined. It's not just biological specimens, it's evolutionary enhancement technology. We're uploading the technical data to your computers now. Vexcar's response showed he was beginning to believe his lieutenant. Evolutionary enhancement? Or kind of enhancement? Improved strength, speed, intelligence, coordination. We've tested it on ourselves. The results are remarkable. But Captain, you need to see this in person. The technology requires direct interface to work properly. Kyung-ho could hear the greed in Nexcar's voice as he replied, Direct interface? Is it safe? Completely safe, Captain. We've all been enhanced and we feel better than ever. Stronger than ever. Smarter than ever. All right, Nexcar decided. I'm coming aboard with a full team. If this technology is as valuable as you say? No, Kyung-ho shouted into his microphone, broadcasting on all frequencies. Vexcar, do not board this vessel. Your crew members are not enhanced. They're infected with a parasitic organism that will take control of their bodies and minds. But it was too late. On the long-range sensors, they could see shuttles launching from 3 of the pirate ships, heading straight for the Soul's Pride. Captain, Dong-su said quietly, if Vexcar and his crew are infected, they'll return to their ships and spread the organism to the entire fleet. Vexcar's shuttle approached the Soul's Pride with 3 others carrying his best warriors. The pirate captain was excited about the possibility of evolutionary enhancement technology, but he was also suspicious. His years of raiding had taught him that things that seemed too good to be true usually were. Glaxmore, he called over the radio, prepare to receive us in the main docking bay. And Glaxmore, I want to see this enhancement technology working before I let any of my crew try it. Of course, Captain, came the calm reply. We'll demonstrate everything. You'll be amazed at what we've become. But Vexcar noticed something in his lieutenant's voice. Glaxmore had always been aggressive, quick to anger, loud in his speech. Now he sounded peaceful, almost serene. For a vexury warrior, that was deeply unsettling. In the command bunker of the Soul's Pride, Kyung-ho watched the approaching shuttles with growing dread. His hand hovered over the controls for Protocol Omega, the final option that would ensure Subject X-47 never escaped this system. Colonel, came Colonel Park's voice from the TDC Incheon, we're detecting unusual energy readings from the pirate shuttles. They're not following normal approach patterns. What do you mean? They're flying in perfect formation, synchronized to the millisecond. That level of coordination is impossible for individual pilots. Kyung-ho understood immediately. The organism is linking them. They're not separate beings anymore. They're parts of a single intelligence. On the security monitors, they could see the infected pirates in the docking bay preparing to receive their captain. But they weren't moving like individuals making preparations. They moved like fingers on a hand, each one performing their part of a larger plan with perfect timing. "How many more pirates are coming aboard?" Sora asked. 43, Hyjin reported, reading the shuttle manifest. "Including Nexcar himself. 43 more hosts," Dongsu said grimly. "The organism will become exponentially more intelligent and capable." The first shuttle docked with a soft thump. Through the security cameras, they watched as Nexcar and his bodyguards stepped onto the Soul's Pride. The pirate captain was a massive vexery. Even by their standards, with scars from 100 battles and cybernetic implants that enhanced his natural strength, he was met by the creatures that had once been his boarding party. To Nexcar's eyes, they looked normal enough, still recognizably vexery, still wearing their armor and carrying their weapons. But Kyung-ho could see the subtle changes that marked their transformation. They stood too straight, moved too smoothly, and their eyes held that alien intelligence. "Glaxmore," Bexcar said, studying his lieutenant carefully, "you look different." "I feel different, Captain. Better, stronger, more focused than I've ever been in my life. Show me this technology." Glaxmore led Bexcar and his team through the corridors of the Soul's Pride. As they walked, more infected pirates joined them, emerging from side passages and maintenance areas. Soon, Bexcar was surrounded by dozens of his own crew members, all showing that same strange calmness. "Captain," one of Bexcar's bodyguards whispered, "something's wrong here. They're all acting strange." But Bexcar was focused on the promise of enhancement technology. He had spent his life fighting for scraps in the Outer Rim, dreaming of the day he would have the power to challenge the major galactic powers. If this technology could make him stronger, faster, smarter, reach the main cargo bay, where the opened containers still leaked their strange vapor into the air. Bexcar could see the biological specimens floating in their preservation fluid, but he also saw something else, a thick, pulsing mass that seemed to be growing larger by the minute. "What is that?" he asked, pointing at the organic growth. "That is the source," Glaxmore explained. "The origin of our enhancement. It's a form of symbiotic organism that bonds with its host, improving every aspect of their biology." "Symbiotic?" Bexcar was beginning to understand that this wasn't technology at all. "You mean it's alive?" "Very much alive. And very intelligent. It doesn't just enhance your body, Captain. It enhances your mind, your understanding, your connection to others who have been enhanced." One of Bexcar's bodyguards raised his weapon. "Captain, we need to leave. Now." But it was too late. The vapor from the containers had been filling the air since they arrived. Every breath they took brought more of Subject X-47 into their bodies. The organism was already beginning its work on the new hosts. Bexcar felt a strange tingling sensation in his limbs. His vision became sharper, his hearing more acute. He could sense the heartbeats of everyone around him, could almost hear their thoughts. "What's happening to me?" he asked, but his voice sounded different, calmer, more controlled. "You're becoming more than you were," Glaxmore said. "More than any of us were. The organism doesn't destroy the host, it perfects them." In the command bunker, Kyung-ho watched the transformation begin. Bexcar and his crew were showing the same physical changes that had affected the original boarding party. Their muscle mass was increasing, their reflexes becoming faster, their coordination improving, but more frightening was the change in their behavior. The vexery who had entered the cargo bay as individuals were beginning to move as a group. When one turned his head, the others turned theirs in the same direction. When one raised his hand, the others mirrored the gesture. "They're networking," Sora observed. "The organism is linking their nervous systems. It's more than that," Kyung-ho said. "It's creating a hive mind. Each new host adds their knowledge and capabilities to the collective." On the security monitors, they could see Bexcar accepting his transformation with the same calm resignation that had affected all the others. The fierce pirate captain who had boarded the ship was gone, replaced by something that retained his memories and skills, but Served a different master? Colonel? Came Colonel Park's voice from the TDC Inchin. We're detecting massive biological activity aboard your vessel. What's your status? The infection has spread to the pirate leadership, Kyung-ho reported. We now have over 80 confirmed. Infected hosts, including their captain? Can you still contain it? Kyung-ho looked at his displays. The infected were no longer just trying to escape, they were actively working to spread the organism. Some were preparing to return to the pirate ships, while others were modifying the Soul's Pride systems to serve as a breeding facility. Negative. Colonel, we're past the point of containment. I'm preparing to initiate Protocol Omega. Colonel, are you certain? Once you activate that protocol, I know what it means, Kyung-ho said. But if Subject X-47 reaches a populated system, the consequences will be far worse than losing a few ships in the Outer Rim. As he spoke, alarms began sounding throughout the Soul's Pride. The infected had gained access to the navigation system, and were preparing to take the ship to Nexus Point Trading Station. Captain, Hyjin said urgently. They're not just planning to go to Nexus Point, they're calculating optimal dispersal patterns for maximum infection spread. What do you mean? They're planning to hit multiple targets simultaneously. Trading stations, colony worlds, even major population centers. They want to spread the organism throughout the galaxy as quickly as possible. Dong-Su was monitoring the biological readings from throughout the ship. Captain, the organism mass in the cargo bay has tripled in size. It's producing spores or seeds of some kind. Airborne transmission vectors, Kyung-ho realized. They're preparing to spread the infection through the atmosphere of any world they visit. The scope of the catastrophe was becoming clear. This wasn't just about a few pirate ships or even a single system. Subject X-47 had evolved beyond their worst-case scenarios. It was preparing to consume the entire galaxy. Colonel Park, Kyung-ho, said into his microphone, "You need to maintain your distance and prepare to destroy any vessel that attempts to leave this area." Understood, Colonel. We're tracking 6 pirate ships and multiple shuttles. If any of them break containment... They won't, Kyung-ho said with grim certainty. Because I'm not going to let them. On the security monitors, he could see the infected were preparing to board their shuttles. But these weren't the same chaotic pirates who had attacked his ship. They moved with perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly what the others were doing without communication. Thex-KAR, now fully transformed, was directing the operation with the calm efficiency of a military commander. But his orders weren't about piracy or profit anymore. They were about spreading the organism to as many hosts as possible. All units, Dexkar said into his communicator, return to your ships and prepare for immediate departure. We have multiple targets to reach before the humans can organize a response. Captain, Sora said, if they get back to their ships... They won't, Kyung-ho repeated. He entered his authorization codes into the Protocol Omega controls. Dong-Su, how long until the protocol is ready? 30 seconds, Captain. And how long until the shuttles reach the pirate ships? 4 minutes, Kyung-ho nodded. Protocol Omega would activate in time to destroy the shuttles before they could spread the infection, but it would also destroy the Soul's Pride and everyone aboard it. Colonel, came Colonel Park's voice, are you still planning to evacuate your crew? Kyung-ho looked around the command bunker at Sora, Dong-Su, and Hyjin. They had served with him through. The countdown began immediately. Protocol Omega had been designed with no delays, no second chances, and no way to stop it once activated. In 60 seconds, a carefully contained nuclear fusion reaction would create a miniature star that would burn for exactly 3.7 seconds, long enough to sterilize everything within a 50-kilometer radius. Protocol Omega activated, Dong-Su announced calmly. Fusion ignition in 55 seconds. On the security monitors, Kyung-ho watched the infected pirates boarding their shuttles with mechanical precision. They had no idea what was about to happen. The organism that controlled them was intelligent, but it had never encountered humanity's final fail-safe protocols. Colonel Park, Kyung-ho said into his communicator, You need to move the engine to minimum safe distance immediately. We're already retreating, Colonel. Our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout your ship. That's the fusion charges initializing. You have 45 seconds to reach safe distance. Through the bridge windows, Kyung-ho could see the distant lights of the TDC engine as it accelerated away from the Soul's Pride. The military cruiser was fast, but he wasn't sure it would get far enough in time. 40 seconds, Dongsu reported. Jin was monitoring the infected shuttles as they prepared to depart. Captain, the first shuttle is launching now. Dexcar is aboard. On the tactical display, they could see the shuttle separating from the Soul's Pride, carrying its cargo of transformed pirates back toward the raider ships. Other shuttles were preparing to follow. They're not going to make it, Sora observed. The fusion blast will catch them before they reach their ships. That's the point, Kyung-ho said. Protocol Omega was designed to ensure nothing escapes. But as he watched the shuttles, Kyung-ho noticed something that chilled his blood. The infected weren't just fleeing randomly, they were spreading out. In a calculated pattern, maximizing their distance from each other and from the Soul's Pride. They know, he realized. Somehow, they know what's coming. 30 seconds, Dongsu announced. The organism's intelligence was more adaptive than anyone had predicted. It had analyzed the energy patterns building up in the Soul's Pride and understood that some kind of explosion was imminent. Now it was trying to maximize the survival chances of at least some of its hosts. Colonel, came a new voice over the communicator, not Colonel Park, but someone else from the engine. This is Admiral Kim. Colonel Park has been ordered to a safe distance, but I need to ask you something. Admiral? Kyung-ho was surprised. He hadn't known there was an admiral aboard the engine. Colonel, the organism you're trying to contain, is it the sample recovered from the Andromeda expedition? 20 seconds, Dongsu announced. Yes, Admiral. Subjects X-47 from the deathworld in the Andromeda spiral. Then you should know we've been tracking other ships carrying similar specimens. You're not the only transport in the field. The words hit Kyung-ho like a physical blow. Other ships? Other specimens? Admiral, are you telling me there are more? Samples of subjects X-47 out there? 15 seconds? Multiple variants, Colonel. Different evolutionary paths, different capabilities. Your sacrifice will prevent this outbreak from spreading, but it won't end the threat entirely. Kyung-ho closed his eyes. He had thought they were making the ultimate sacrifice to save the galaxy. Instead, they were just buying time. 10 seconds, Dongsu said softly. Admiral, Kyung-ho said, make sure the other transports know what happened here. Make sure they understand that the warnings on their ships aren't suggestions. 9 seconds. We will, Colonel. Your sacrifice won't be forgotten. 8. Kyung-ho looked around the command bunker one last time. Sora was sitting calmly at her station, her hands folded in her lap. Haijin was still monitoring the tactical displays, tracking the infected shuttles even though it no longer mattered. Dongsu continued his countdown with professional precision. 7. Through the security monitors, they could see the organic mass in the cargo bay pulsing with alien life, unaware that it had only seconds left to exist. 6. The infected shuttles were spreading across space, but they wouldn't get far enough. The fusion blast would catch them all. 5. Kyung-ho thought about the warnings painted on his ship's hull in 17 different languages. All those species, all those civilizations, all those ways of saying the same thing, stay away. 4. The galaxy would learn from this. They would have to. 3. Somewhere out there, other ships like the Soul's Pride were carrying their own dangerous cargo through space, protected only by warning signs and the hope that people would be smart enough to heed them. 2. But people weren't always smart. Greed and curiosity and arrogance made them ignore warnings, dismiss precautions, and take risks that put entire civilizations in danger. 1. The fusion charges detonated simultaneously throughout the Soul's Pride. For 3.7 seconds, a miniature star burned in the darkness of space. The temperature at the center of the blast reached 50 million degrees, hot enough to break down matter at the atomic level. Everything within 50 kilometers was reduced to component particles: the Soul's Pride, the pirate shuttles, the infected crew members, and Subject X-47 itself. The pirate ships that had been waiting for their shuttles to return were caught at the edge of the blast. 2 were completely destroyed. 3 others were severely damaged, their hulls cracked open, and their crews killed by radiation. Only 1 ship, the farthest from the Soul's Pride, survived with minor damage. The TDC Incheon, now 80 kilometers away, rode out the shockwave with minimal damage. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge, watching the fading light of the explosion, and thinking about the 4 people who had just given their lives to protect the galaxy. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from the surviving pirate ship." "Are they infected?" "Negative, sir. They were too far away when the organism was released, but their ship is badly damaged." "Render assistance," Admiral Kim ordered, "and prepare a full report for Terran Command. They need to know what happened here." As the Incheon moved to help the surviving pirates, Admiral Kim composed a message that would be sent to every human ship carrying hazardous biological materials, to all transport vessels carrying classified biological specimens. The warning: protocols exist for a reason. The signs on your ships are not suggestions or guidelines, they are the last line of defense between civilization and extinction. Colonel Kyung-ho and his crew gave their lives to prove this truth. Do not let their sacrifice be meaningless. 1 week later, in a secure facility deep beneath the surface of Earth, scientists examined the preliminary reports from the Soul's Pride incident. Dr. Sarah Chun, the lead researcher on the Subject 47 project, read the files with growing horror. "The organism adapted to vexillary physiology faster than any of our models predicted," she said to her colleague, Dr. James Martinez. "And the intelligence enhancement exceeded our worst-case scenarios." "What about the other specimens?" Martinez asked. "The variants from different regions of the Andromeda world?" Dr. Cheen pulled up another file. "Still in transport. But after what happened to the Soul's Pride, I'm recommending that all biological transport operations be suspended until we can develop better containment protocols." "The military won't like that. They're eager to study the potential applications." "The military can go to hell," Dr. Chun said bluntly. "Colonel Kyung-ho was right. Some things are too dangerous to exist. We should destroy all the specimens before someone else ignores the warnings." But even as she spoke, Dr. Chun knew it wouldn't happen. There were too many people who believed that any risk was acceptable if it might give humanity an advantage over its enemies. Too many people who thought that warning signs were just suggestions. 6 months later, a new transport ship left Earth carrying a different variant of the organism from the Andromeda world. The ship was called the Bison's Hope, and like its predecessor, it was covered with warning signs in multiple languages. Captain Lee Min-ho read the mission briefing as his ship entered hyperspace. The cargo was classified, dangerous, and essential to humanity's defense. He understood the risks, but he also understood the necessity. "Captain," his second-in-command said, "the crew is asking about all the warning signs on the hull. Some of them are nervous." "Good," Captain Lee replied. "Fear keeps people alive. Make sure everyone understands. Those warnings are there for a reason." The Soul's Pride proved what happens when people ignore them. As the Bison's Hope traveled through hyperspace toward its destination, Captain Lee thought about Colonel Kyung-ho and his crew. Their sacrifice had bought the galaxy time to prepare for the threat posed by Subject X-47 and its variants, but time was all it had bought them. The organisms were still out there, still being transported through space, still protected only by warning signs and the hope that people would be smart enough to stay away. In the vast darkness between the stars, other ships moved through space carrying their own dangerous cargo. Each one was marked with warnings, sealed with multiple layers of security, and crewed by people who understood the risks. And somewhere out there, pirates and raiders and treasure hunters looked at those warning signs and saw not danger, but opportunity. The universe, it seemed, had an endless supply of people who thought the rules didn't apply to them, but it also had people like C,